Paradox makes some of the best games out there, but you can count that their DLCs will always be very expensive. Because of this, it can be helpful to know which DLCs are the amazing, game-changing ones, and which ones you could probably wait on. So let's begin. To start off, I've put all the cosmetic items into a separate tier, as they're not really ones that you need, they just kind of make your game look prettier. This includes all the clothing packs and the recently released building pack. Moving on, we'll be going to the recently released Wandering Nobles DLC and putting it in B tier. This DLC adds a brand new lifestyle and many new events focused on the wandering gameplay. This is not an essential DLC by any means, but it's not inconsequential, and it has some rather neat stuff. Next we have Wards and Wardens, which goes into C tier. This DLC gives you many more education options and greater freedom/control over your player heir. If you're a fan of min-maxing, I'd recommend it, but ultimately it's not the most important or impactful. Now onto a DLC that's pretty exciting, Roads to Power, which goes straight to S tier. This DLC is absolutely massive and absolutely amazing. Centered on the Byzantines, this DLC adds a brand new government type with a lot to love. An upgradable family estate, political intrigue, and tons of landless content. This DLC is certainly one of the most impactful in the game's history, and one of my favorites, thanks in no small part to it adding a ton of brand new decisions and events that can happen regarding the rise or fall of Rome. An entirely new start date is indeed an incredibly neat thing. Now onto Friends and Foes, which goes into D tier. This DLC adds nemesises and house feuds. I don't dislike these mechanics per se, but ultimately I think there's less going on here than in Wards and Wardens. Now to Legacy of Persia, which goes into C tier. This DLC adds a lot of flavor to Persia and a brand new struggle in the region that you can participate in. Honestly, I was tempted to put this one into B tier as Persia is one of my more favorite regions of the game. This is a pretty solid DLC, but since it's a regional flavor pack, whether or not you want it will depend on whether you're interested in playing in that region, so be aware. In a similar vein, we have Fate of Iberia in C tier. This is a similar story to Legacy of Persia. If you're really interested in playing in Spain, I think this is a DLC you'll love. But if that is not the case, then of course this will not affect your gameplay. Now on to our first and only DLC in F tier, we have Legends of the Dead. If you were paying attention to CK3 at the time this DLC came out, you'll know that there was quite a bit of controversy around it. The reason being that the content of the DLC was not seen as enough to justify its price. Many players were also annoyed with how devastating the plague mechanics could be. Considering that things like the legitimacy and plague system were added in the free update that accompanied this DLC, the DLC itself didn't add much aside from some things like the Black Plague. So yeah, overall you're kind of fine without this one. Now on a happier note, we go to Northern Lords, which goes right to S tier. This is truly an incredible flavor pack. The sheer amount of content added to Vikings and related to Vikings is incredible. The Norse are one of the most fun cultures to play as, with you being able to raid, pillage, and adventure to new kingdoms with ease. Even if you're not playing as the Norse, if you start in 867, you can bet that they'll have quite an impact on world history. Hopefully in the future we can get more flavor packs like this one, because it's excellent. Also, very important announcement, after this video is uploaded I'll be posting a poll on YouTube as to what tier list you would like to see next. I've got many ideas and there are many areas of the game to cover, so make sure to vote. Moving on, I know it may not be released yet, but I think I'm going to put a guess for Cons of the Steppe. I think it's going to be somewhere around A or B tier when it comes out. The Eurasian Steppe is currently a region in the game that's kind of lacking, so I think any improvement to the area will probably be quite nice. In a similar vein, I'm also guessing that the All Under Heaven DLC will be quite good. Then again, I don't know, maybe adding an entire new region will somehow crash the game or make it unplayable. Quite possible. But as it stands, adding all of East Asia does seem pretty awesome. Guess we'll have to wait and see. Next we have Royal Court, which goes into A tier. There are many features associated with the Royal Court and a ton of unique events that can happen in the throne room. One of its main appeals to me, however, is simply the visual appeal. Whereas typically your characters are limited to a flat box with a 2D background, the Royal Court adds a fully 3D environment that you can customize to your liking with tons of different artifacts. Stealing the bones of a saint from your nemesis, then hanging them up in your hall is kind of nice. Continuing, we have Tours and Tournaments, which goes into S tier. Arguably, this is one of the most consequential DLCs of the entire game. This DLC and its associated free update was when the travel system was originally introduced. This paved the way for things like landless gameplay and administrative governments. The accolade system, tournaments, and grand tours are all pretty neat. While I may prefer Roads to Power, I must give this DLC its due. This leaves us to the final choice. What is the best DLC? And I think it is Roads to Power. Yes, my bias for Rome shines again. But landless gameplay is awesome, and the administrative government type is also my favorite government type. I am not completely biased, however, as this DLC objectively added a ton of stuff. In fact, the only DLC that'll probably supersede it is the new DLC focused on China. In any case, if you haven't played the game in a while, or just getting started, Roads to Power offers a fresh and unique gameplay experience, all around my favorite lovely Byzantium. Yep, so like and subscribe, and bye!